There's four basic operations in algebra: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and we want to be able to do any of those four with positive and negative numbers. We're going to start here with addition of positive and negative numbers. Now, the rule is written in the book. There's a lot of examples in the book. The first thing you need to do is convince yourself that the rule makes sense to you. If it doesn't, do whatever it takes to get to that point where you believe the rule, where the rule makes sense to you. The rule isn't going to change. You have to change. The second thing that you want to do is work enough problems correctly, problem after problem after problem, so that you operate just naturally according to that rule. That rule is just a description of the way you operate when it comes to adding positive and negative numbers. The way to get to that point is simply by working a lot of problems. Let's look at a couple here on the board. We want to add, first of all, 13 plus negative 20. Now, 13 is positive. There's no sign written in front of it, so it's assumed to be positive. So positive 13 plus negative 20. Two numbers with different signs, we subtract their absolute values. So I'm going to subtract 13 from just 20. I get 7. The sign of the answer is the same as the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. Negative 20 has a larger absolute value than 13. It's negative, so my answer is negative. So positive 13 plus negative 20 turns out to be negative 7. You can visualize that on the number line, whatever you want to convince yourself that this is the correct answer. But in the end, you want to just be able to do this problem very quickly. 13 plus negative 20 is negative 7, period. Here's our next problem. Negative 6 plus 3, again, we're adding two numbers with different signs. This is a negative 6 and a positive 3. There's no sign in front of the 3, so it's assumed to be positive. That's an addition sign. I subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger. I get just 3. The number with larger absolute value is negative, so my answer is negative. So in that case, negative 6 plus negative 3 comes out to be negative 3, applying the rule again just as I did in the first problem. The next problem has two negative numbers. I want to add negative 6 and negative 6. According to my rule then, I want to add absolute values. 6 and 6 is 12. And then I use the common sign. Whatever sign both of these numbers have, my answer has too. So the answer is negative 12. Negative 6 plus negative 6 comes out to be negative 12. Now, if you're used to using that expression, two negatives make a positive, you're going to see right away here that it doesn't make sense. In this case, when I add two negative numbers, I end up with a negative number. So the best thing for you to do is simply memorize the rules the way they're written and be able to apply them correctly each and every time, and stay away from little sayings that you may have heard before you got into algebra. Let's look at a problem now that's a little more complicated than the first two, or three. Here we have 5 plus negative 6 plus negative 7. You don't have to worry about it because we can only add two numbers at a time. So if I see three numbers added together right here, I'll just take them two at a time. 5 plus negative 6. Two numbers with different signs. I subtract absolute values and get 1. I use the sign in front of the 1 with the larger absolute value. To that, I want to add negative 7. Now, negative 1 plus negative 7, they have the same sign, so I add absolute values and get 8, and then I use the common sign, negative. Now, when you do these problems yourself on your homework, you want your work to look just like this work. Each line has to be a complete line with an equal sign in front of it. Copy the whole problem down. Don't do just a lot of little calculations over here and then write the answer. Make your work look like this. Here's our next one. Negative 9 plus 2 in parentheses plus, in brackets this, plus negative 4. So let's work inside the parentheses. Negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. Plus, inside the brackets here, 5 plus negative 8 is negative 3. And I'll just go to parentheses since I just have one level. I use brackets here because there was parentheses here, so to distinguish between them, I use brackets. I don't need to do that since I just want to enclose negative 3 with some grouping symbols. Plus negative 4. Now I add, I add my first two, negative 7 plus negative 3, negative 10 plus negative 4. Negative 10 plus negative 4, negative 14. Applying my rule for adding positive and negative numbers consistently every time. Now, you want to work a lot of problems so you get to that point where you operate according to that rule. That is, that rule is a description of the way you operate. Along the way, you're going to make some mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. Just be sure that you're checking your answers. When you find you've made a mistake, go back and check and see where it came from. But don't feel bad if you make mistakes. You are supposed to make mistakes in the process of learning algebra.